Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
We love our VW T6 campervan and we love to get away as often as possible. We'd like to share with you some of our favourite not so wild campsites that we found along the way.
As Jackie said, we love taking our campervan into the wild places, but we also like going to the not so wild places. So what we've done is we've collated some of our favourite campsites that are a little bit more commercial and a little bit more accessible than some of our favourite wilder sites.
While we were doing our research, one thing we will say is that we were a little bit surprised at how much the cost of living has perhaps impacted the prices of these campsites, but they are campsites that we would visit again, even though the costs are a bit more than we were used to.
So these campsites are obviously a little bit bigger. They tend to be located in more touristy areas, so they tend to be a little bit busier, particularly at peak times. So consequently, you have to get your act together in terms of making bookings for peak times because these sites are often booked out.
Okay, so in no particular order, we're going to start with Ocean Pitch Campsite, which is in Croyd in Devon, and it is a campsite that we have had absolutely oodles of fun when we've been there.
Not quite sure how we stumbled upon it, but it's an absolute gem. It's very quirky and it's very sort of stylised little campsite.
It is right by the beach. We have spent hours boogie boarding from there. They do lots of surf lessons and boogie boarding lessons from there. It has a quite renowned kitchen called Biffin's Kitchen that people come from miles to visit.
It's a little bit hard to describe. It's a bit like a mobile food truck that's based at the campsite all the time, but the young lad who runs it just produces the most incredible and eclectic takeout meals that you could ever get at a campsite.
Yep, so if you don't want to cook, we highly recommend those. As a campsite, it's not one of the more expensive ones in that area. Prices range from £30 per night without electricity in low season to £45 per night with electricity in high season, which is quite expensive, but the location is just so worth it.
Moving north for our next recommendation is Middlewood Farm, which is just outside Robinhoods Bay. The Yorkshire coastline is one of our favourite coastlines to visit, and we've been visiting it since we were kids, but only recently have we been visiting it in our campervan. And Middlewood Farm is a working farm. It is a little bit rustic. It couldn't be described as luxury, but it also couldn't be described as basic, and it is in an ideal location just outside Robinhoods Bay.
It's actually one of the first places we ever visited when we first got our campervan. We stayed somewhere in the Yorkshire Dales and then we went to Robinhoods Bay for 3 nights. It is a really cute little walk down into Robinhoods Bay. It feels like you're in the middle of nowhere, and then you go down through the forest and you actually cut in right by the harbour front past the fish and chip shop, and I have to say that fish and chip shop is one of the best ones we've ever been to, isn't it?
It is, and it's also ideally located on the old railway that they've converted into a cycle path and footpath into Whitby. Now, we have walked it once and we'll probably never walk it again because it's a fair old trek, but if you've got your bikes, it's an ideal location to access Whitby, which can be very busy at times, and also the beautiful Robinhoods Bay.
It has a mixture of touring campervans and tents, and there is also a static caravan area as well that's kept a little bit separate. It does get busy, you do need to book it, but we love Robinhoods Bay, and if you are really lucky, you could go a little bit further down the coast on a day trip, and there is the seal colony at Ravenscar that you could go and visit from there as well.
Pricing structure is really simple. It's £30 in off-peak season and £40 in peak season. So yeah, we recommend it.
Okay, so we're going to jump across to the Lake Districts now. We have stayed a couple of times at a place called Waterside Farm campsite, which is on the shores of Lake Ullswater, quite close to the town of Pooley Bridge. On a summer's night, it's just a 15-20 minute walk and definitely worth it. The campsite is, again, based on a working farm. It gets really busy, so you do need to book it. The pricing structure is a bit quirky for this one. They do have absolutely stunning lakeside pictures that you can pre-book, but they do come at a premium of £70 a night. A lot of people think it's worth it. You can open your van doors and you are right by the beach. But for, is it £30 a night?
It is.
Yep, £30 a night. You can then choose anywhere else on the campsite that's not a waterfront pitch to park up your campervan. You can have fires, which is lovely. We've sat around chatting to people by the campfire on many occasions. It is an absolutely stunning campsite. The other thing is it's great for water sports.
Yep, you can launch your kayaks and your stand-up paddleboards from there, and it is really popular. People obviously go there for the weekend to do those sort of activities. But you also have access to a really quiet road structure around the lake where you can do cycling. It is really hilly, so be warned as soon as you move away from the lake. And then obviously being in the Lake District, there is a whole range of walks that you can do, from low-level walks around the lake to more challenging peaks. And obviously it's really popular with us because we bagged all the Wainwrights around there, so it was a great base for that.
A little bit of a note, the pictures around the lake are really nice and flat and level. It is a bit quirky. You probably might need levelling chocks if you were anywhere else, because the fields are a little bit sloped. We don't have levelling chocks, but we do love this campsite.
On a similar theme to Lakeside Campsite, we moved to North Wales and Llyn Gwynant campsite, which is also based on a lake and is also in the Snowdonian National Park. So it is right at the foothills of Snowdon. You can walk directly from there. It is a bit of a trek, but it does mean that you get free parking at the campsite. It is a huge campsite and it is one of our favourite campsites. It's really vibrant, particularly on bank holidays. Vibrant or packed or crazy. It's a very, very lively campsite. It has takeout food. It has brilliant pizzas that you can buy. It actively encourages campfires and sells you wood. It is just an amazing place to go and relax because you've got a short walk and you are on the lakeside and you are absolutely surrounded by incredible high peaks of Snowdonia.
There are a lot of people that take their own paddleboards and kayaks. You can go right across to the other side of the lake. There are rocks that people canoe out to so that they can jump off them. Quirky thing of note is that the phone signal there is absolutely rubbish. We love that. Once we've parked up, we are out of contact with the outside world, but they have given in and they've installed Wi-Fi right by reception. So if you walk around on an evening, you do see all the youngsters there trying desperately to get a little bit of signal so that they can stay in touch with the world. One of the things I love about the campsite is it is one of the paths that you can hike up to get up Snowdon. It's called the Watkins Path, but what I love about the Watkins Path is the waterfalls and the plunge pools from the waterfalls. And we've spent a couple of pleasant evenings with a beer or two swimming and paddling in the really crystal clear blue waters of those mountain streams. It's gorgeous.
As I said earlier, it does get absolutely rammed, particularly at bank holidays, and you do have to book because we've turned up there on spec and have been turned away because there is just no room on the campsite at all. And in the research for this video, the pricing structure is a little bit quirky.
It is, yes. You look online and it does say that it's £26 per night, but once you actually go through the basket booking out process, there are quite a few little additions on there. You get charged a £5 booking fee, which, considering you have to book, I'm not sure why they do that, but in essence, once you've gone through all of that process, it ranges from about £38 per night in lower season to £45 a night in high season. It is an amazing campsite and I would pay that fee just to experience being by the lakeside on a nice sunny evening. We're back down in Cornwall for our next campsite, and this is one of our family favourite campsites that we used to go to every year when the children were little. It's called Mother Ivey's Bay, which is just outside of Padstow. It has the most stunning location. The campsite itself has its own little private beach, Mother Ivey's Bay. It is within walking distance of 3 epic surfing beaches. There's Harlan Sands, which is about 15 minutes going north, and then to the south there's Constantine Bay and Boobies Bay, which the kids thought was hilarious with that name. But they are all really dramatic, moody, stormy beaches if it's cold and wet, and we've been there on several occasions when it's been wild and windy. But they're also huge surfing beaches, and it is just beautiful.
It is an absolutely huge campsite, and particularly in peak seasons of school holidays, it will feel absolutely rammed. But it's also quite a peaceful campsite. It doesn't have a clubhouse, it doesn't have a bar, it does operate quiet times on a night, and it is a really peaceful place to go. We've spent endless days and nights wandering down to the beaches, sitting out, having campfires on the beaches, fishing off the rocks. Some really, really happy memories, but it does come at a price.
Yes. What is the price? In more recent years, we've only actually ever gone off peak, and it's about £33 a night, which is definitely worth it. Doing our research, when we looked how much it was in the summer holidays, it starts from £65 a night now. But we also looked and compared it to quite a few other Cornish campsites, and that is seemingly the going rate, I think. It's a great base for a family holiday, nice and peaceful, and even at £65 a night, it's still cheaper than renting a holiday cottage, and you're out there in pure wild heaven.
Moving closer to home for us in the Yorkshire Dales is Studfold Farm, which is on the eastern side of the Yorkshire Dales in the Nidderdale Valley. Its closest town is Pateley Bridge, and it is just a really good standard family campsite in the middle of nowhere that gives you that feeling of isolation, but you're not actually that far from anywhere.
It's got great facilities. It's got a nice toilet block. It's great for families. Part of the campsite has access to an adventure trail. There is a separate cost to that. It's got a little fairy themed trail that the children can go and explore up and down the stream. It's got a cafe there, which is great. It did a cracking breakfast when we were there. It's within walking distance of the closest little village, and there is a really good pub there that we had a nice meal in.
And it's really reasonably priced. So in off-peak season, non-electric hookup is a remarkable £15 a night, with electric hookup being £21, and then if you just add a tenner on for peak season, it goes to £25 without electric hookup and £31 with electric hookup. So it just is a really good value campsite that we would recommend in the beautiful Yorkshire Dales.
And for me, one of the major pulls that made us return, underneath the campsite must be a complete warren of rabbit holes. If you sit out watching the sunset on an evening, there are literally dozens of rabbits around the field. They're so cute. Heading back into Wales. The next campsite that we have on our list is a campsite called Fforest Fields campsite near the town of, and I know I'm not going to pronounce this right, Bulleth. It seemingly is a bit of a mecca for VW campervans. When we've stayed there on a few occasions, there's probably been upwards of 30 or 40 VWs parked across the fields. It is a little bit remote. You have to drive to the nearest town, but the campsite itself is quite compact and has everything that you need. It has got a pizza oven restaurant. It's got a nice quiet little bar area. It's got a farm shop that sells fresh meat produce. So everything that you need, you could get on that campsite.
And you can also get the space because it's got a huge camping field where you can literally pitch up where you wish. It does have some pretty amazing sunsets. We've had some nice nights there. And bizarrely, it's got its own, I'd call it a lake, but it's not much more than a pond that is available for water sports. So there's some kayaks there and stand-up paddle boards, and I do know that people swim in there. So it feels in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. There's lots of walks around there. Nothing too high, nothing too strenuous, but it is just really popular in terms of a weekend break. And I know it's very, very popular on school holidays. Compared to some of the other campsites that we've reviewed, it is quite reasonable in terms of cost. In off-peak season for non-electric, it's £20 a night, and with electric, it's £30 a night. And then the peak season prices just go up by £5. So 25 for non-electric and 35 for electric hookup.
So we're back in the Yorkshire Dales for the next recommendations, and a little bit different. We're going to talk about two campsites that are owned by the same family, Catgill campsite and Howgill campsite. They're based near the Bolton Abbey estate, and they are both similar but very different. Catgill is mainly aimed at people in tents. You can go there in smaller vans like VW campervans, but you're not allowed motorhomes because of their planning permission. Howgill, their sister campsite, is about 5 miles down the road, and that's aimed more at caravans, motorhomes, and less tenting.
Ironically, though, Howgill's is way more isolated and way more difficult to get to. So even though you are allowed motorhomes and caravans, I personally would be sweating it a little bit driving down the roads to get to Howgill because it is down some pretty windy roads.
Yeah, you have to go over Barden Bridge, which you do see a lot in the James Herriot programme that we've been watching recently. It's really, really narrow. And then you have to negotiate a farm track that's not even tarmacked. But once you get there, it is beautiful.
The common theme between the two campsites is actually, for Jackie's purposes, llamas.
They're not llamas, they're alpacas. And yeah, the first time we ever went to Howgill, they had 3 alpacas in the field just below it. And they all had babies. Sadly, one of the babies did die, but they've moved them across at the moment, or certainly last time we went, they were at Catgill campsite. So you never quite know which campsite you're going to be at to where you see the alpacas.
But back to the campsites, the standard across the two campsites is really high. So the quality of the facilities they have is really good. So the washrooms and everything that you could possibly need are of a high standard. They are quite into their sort of trendy camping. So they will hire out fire pits and sell you firewood. And they're into the glamping scene.
Wow, the glamping pods at Catgill are just, I can't even put it into words. They are so luxurious. They are expensive, but wow, if I could afford it, I would hire one. It's about £250 a night, but they've got their own jacuzzi and a pizza oven. Both campsites offer a takeout service in the mornings. You can get some lovely French coffees and pastries.
Last summer, we did do a campsite review of Catgill Farm, and I'll put the link somewhere above, but we fully intend to visit its sister site Howgill this summer and also do a review of that. But they are two of our favourite campsites. They're pretty much on our doorstep where we live, and that doesn't switch us off that because they are so good that we still actually like going to them. Both campsites have quite a complex pricing structure, and the prices range from £28 a night up to £42 a night, depending on the season that you go and whether you require electric hookup or not. And we've saved, in our opinion, probably one of the best and best value campsites till last. It is Towyn Farm on the north coast of the Llyn Peninsula, and as is traditional with Jackie and Richard, it is based on a working farm, so you have to get used to the fact that there will be lots of sheep and lots of sheepdogs around. And interestingly, the washroom is based in the old pigsty, which is quite a unique situation, but it is a good quality facility. The showers are a little bit basic. You do have to pay 50p for the privilege of hot water, but it is perfectly adequate for a weekend or a week because people do go and stay there for long periods of time because it is such good value and it is in an amazing location.
Yeah, it's right on the coast by the coastal path, and you've got access to several beaches and little coves, and you can really, even though the campsite is busy, you can get away from the crowds by just spending 2 minutes extra walking along the cliff path and dipping down into one of their little sort of secretive coves. It's stunning. The sunsets from there are just beautiful. It does get really busy. There are a lot of families that go there, and you do need to book. The owner, it's family run, is absolutely amazing. She is just such a character and she's so friendly. They have opened up a very high-end farm shop cafe that's on the cliff edge, and if you head inland, there is a path that takes you straight to the local pub.
And in our opinion, it's really good value for money because it's just a flat rate of £25 a night if you don't require electricity or £30 if you do want hookup. And it is genuinely one of our favourite campsites that we are desperate to keep going back to. Not just because it's good value, but its location and sunsets are simply stunning.
And it's quite a short drive to some of the big touristy destinations that we love going to. It's about 20 minutes from Abersock. You've got Hellsmouth Beach, which is just further down the road. It's in a great location to explore the Llyn Peninsula. So that's it. another eclectic mixture of campsites from Jackie and Richard. We hope that one or two of them might be something that you think you might like to visit.
And as we said right from the start, we absolutely love our wild campsites, but it's really nice to go to some of these perhaps a little bit more commercial and a little bit more populated campsites when you fancy just something a little bit different. So that's it from us.
Bye.
See ya.